Let's go over some positioning hacks for sitting on the couch. So let's talk first if you are kind of a side sitter. Step number one is to make sure that you are taking turns switching from side to side. I have seen so many patients with pain patterns that comes from deeply leaning and favoring one side. Another thing we can do is versus this extreme angle, kind of like putting a curve through our back, we can use outside external pillows, towels, or blankets to put the spine in a little bit more of a neutral position. I also like to have something between my knees when I am sitting on my side, and this just feels already so much better for your neck, shoulders, back, hip, everything. If you are one of these, you like to stretch the legs out and kind of sit rounded. We know that rounding adds a lot of stress on the disc in our back, and this slouch position just is doing no favors on our shoulders. So you want to sit back a little, and versus just having to sit up, which is not realistic without a lot of work, you want to take pillows and make sure you're supporting yourself. So you can try a vertical pillow that gives you like a little bit more of an incline. I like to roll up a towel, pillow, or blanket and put it at my mid back. This is going to hold the spine in a little bit better of a curve versus all of that excessive rounding. And then if this still feels uncomfortable on your legs, you can play with having pillows to the outside, which can just help to make you feel more supported with less effort. This also goes for people who like to sit in crisscross applesauce while they're on the couch. This just turns off a lot of the sensation. So for my shorties like myself, it can feel really exhausting to just have your legs floating. So I feel like we're so much more often to pull either one leg up or sit crossed, which can have poor effects on our back, our hips, our knees. So what are some hacks for this? I personally use yoga blocks, but putting something underneath your feet to where your knees and hips are just automatically more aligned. They make official footrests that you can put under your desk, but the yoga blocks are kind of nice because you can keep them by the couch or wherever you sit. I still recommend that you keep a pillow, towel, or blanket to fold and put right at the mid-back. That just helps to hold a more natural curve in your spine with a little less effort. They make chairs to do this, but I feel like this little added push helps. I want to reiterate, with all of my positioning and sitting videos, I'm not saying you should absolutely never cross your legs, because there is going to be circumstances where this is just more comfortable. But there is ways to play around with doing it more consciously. So taking like a meditation pillow or cushion, you can put that under your hips, and versus rounding through your spine while you're also sitting cross, you can at least hold your torso in a more aligned position. This also puts less stress on the hips because the knees are a little bit lower. I would play around with switching the cross a little bit more often so you're not getting this imbalance side to side. That goes for playing around with sitting to one side and making sure you even it out with the other. Trying to realistically sit like this takes a ton of strength and effort, and it's just very uncomfortable. But you can also just play with something to tip your pelvis forward a little and play with that maybe for bits of time. It's all about mixing it up. Okay, let's talk ergonomics for driving in the car. So there's definitely a lot of options that you can play around with. I think this is especially important when you're going to be sitting for longer periods of time, or if you're just someone who commutes really regularly. There can be so many patterns I've seen, especially lots of like truck drivers that kind of end up falling into such a slouch posture, which ends up having a lot of impact on your hips and your back. You will never see me going on a road trip without packing my lacrosse balls, and I just keep them in my normal car that I drive so that I can always have them accessible. So what I do is I just put these on either side of my spine, and it can be so nice to give yourself a little massage. It also, if you put it like right at your mid back, almost helps you fill in the curve, because a lot of the seats that are in cars just don't really give us a lot of back support, and it just is nice. It's like a 2-for-1. It's helping with alignment, and then you can also play around with giving yourself a little massage safely, of course.
If the idea of having the balls behind you freaks you out, you can use just a jacket, put it at the mid back, and that way your spine's just being held in overall better alignment. I like to also play around with doing different movements while I drive, like little butt cheek squeezes, little tummy tucks, little shoulder blade squeezes, and I especially like to practice just pushing my head against the headrest of the seat. All these are just little postural exercises you can do that can be nice, especially when you're holding still for long amounts of time. It's good to let yourself pull off and stretch regularly, especially if you drive often or for long periods.